Welcome. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. We're so glad that you're here. Welcome to the first mini seminar of 2023. And so we wanted to just kind of give you an overview of what we've done. And so in 2021, when we actually began doing these mini seminars, we began with the brain that was moderated by Dr. Ebony Lance. It was so good. Followed by, we did sleep and sickle cell disease by Dr. Valerie. And then we did our first mental health and sickle cell disease moderated by Dr. Jonas Saint. Then last year, 2022, we did reproductive health and sickle cell disease. That was moderated by the beautiful Tiana Wolford. And then we did holistic health and sickle cell disease. That was really good, moderated by Shirley Powell. And then we did again mental health and sickle cell disease. Oh, that was so phenomenally presented with Dr. Theopia Jackson. This year in 2023, we have for you fatigue and sickle cell disease, legal, yes, legal and sickle cell disease. And that's going to be moderated by attorney Art Grant. And then we also have mental health again this year to be moderated by Mama Fifi or Felicia Hunt. And so fatigue, we're going to do a deep dive today. And then the next, we'll have a additional 2 seminars after that. I want to just kind of give you some reminders for save the date of our 15th Annual Sickle Cell Disease Educational Summit. It's going to be live and in person in Los Angeles, but also it will be virtual as well, just in case you're not able to fly out. And that's going to be in September 13th, 14th, 15th, and 16th. So mark the date. Very soon, we're going to have opportunity for you all to register early. And so I'm going to say, come on down, like Price is Right. Come on down to Los Angeles. It's going to be a blast. We're finally back home. I also want to take this time to thank our Cayenne Wellness Center team, Mary Alcacer, who's our program manager, who wears all hats, does it all. Thank you, Mary. I also want to thank our tech team, 610 Designs, who are always behind the scenes, making things work and streaming and connecting. Thank you, 610. And thanking Dr. Bailey for being a co-moderator with me, as well as our panelists, our Sickle Cell Warrior panelists. So looking forward to today. I'm thanking everyone who who's playing a role for today. So why don't we get started? So, wow, fatigue. You know, we are very patient-centered here at Cayenne Wellness Center, meaning that when there's an overwhelming topic that the community would like to know more about, we make sure that we add that to the various educational platforms and seminars that we do. And so fatigue has been one that people wanted to know for about over a year now, if not more. And so fatigue is, people are saying how tired they are, no energy, what have you. But we wanted to take a deeper dive. So today is just going to be more of a layout, a general foundation looking into fatigue. And then for our next 2, we'll take a deeper dive as well into a particular fatigue study that's being done in the UK. And then followed by the next one after that in terms of, so what can we do to mitigate these fatigue symptoms? What can we do to aid in feeling better? So let's get started. And I'm going to ask our tech team to put our PowerPoint up right now. And while the PowerPoint is being loaded, I just want to, again, um, just to wish everybody these are very interesting times for the last 3 years, and just to make sure that people are being, I use the word mindful, but just to become aware of your breathing, being calm, managing stress, staying healthy. And so this is what I wish for you today and every day. All right, thank you. I'm going to have you advance the slide, please. So today I'm going to introduce this topic of fatigue. Next, after that, we'll say what is sickle cell disease. And we all know if you're in the sickle cell space, of course, you know what it is, but there are some people who are joining us for the first time, and we always want to give a quick overview of what sickle cell disease is. We'll talk about the impact of fatigue, followed by factors that contribute to fatigue. And then we have our sickle cell warriors in the green room waiting to talk about their experience with fatigue. And then we'll have questions and answers. Now, at any time, everyone knows we welcome questions all the time. So don't feel like you have to wait to the end, and then we'll address those. Next slide, please. All right. So, next slide. Great. So, in doing research in preparation for today, I found that overall, because there aren't that many studies, but overall, little is known about the symptom of fatigue in sickle cell disease. We know that it exists because of warriors reporting it, but there hasn't been as many studies as we would like to really delve in to look at that mechanism and what contributes to it. And then again, what can be done to alleviate it once you actually have that. So, and you'll hear me say this throughout, there is a great need for research on the nature and potential mechanisms of fatigue and sickle cell disease. There just is. So we do know that fatigue and sickle cell disease may negatively affect the quality of life. And we do know that it affects one's ability to do what one has done when they had a lot more energy. Now it takes them twice, three times as long, right? Or the feeling of not being able to just get out of bed, and namely because you're fatigued. Makes it hard for people to keep a job as well, or even in terms of school, being able to study. So it has a true impact. So I believe that if we can do more studies in this area, understanding factors that may contribute to fatigue will aid clinicians in identifying causes and determining treatment. All right, so let's go on to what is sickle cell disease. And I'm going to see if Dr. Bailey has been able to join us. Okay, so while Dr. Bailey is still signing on, I'm going to go ahead and take her part right now until she's able to sign on right now. So, what is sickle cell disease? And of course, like I mentioned earlier, those of you who are in our community, um, you're aware of what that is. But I'm just going to just let you know. So, sickle cell disease is a red blood cell disorder. We do know that it is genetic, and that in terms of rare disease, um, it's the um, it's the one that is the most popular. There are a lot more persons with sickle cell disease in the rare disease space than than other rare diseases rather. So it is a group of genetic hematological disorders that is characterized by chronic hemolytic anemia and vaso-occlusion. And we're going to actually get into uh, describing uh, those particular symptoms, the hemolytic anemia and vaso-occlusion. We do know that there are 300 babies born yearly worldwide. That's quite a few. We do know that there are millions with sickle cell disease around the world, particularly in Africa. And if we can go back to the previous slide, we do know that in the United States, that sickle cell anemia occurs in approximately 1 in 500 African American births annually, and 1 in 36,000 Hispanic American births annually. And so we have that number that we keep hearing that about 100,000 folks with sickle cell disease, 100,000 people in America live with sickle cell disease. And that's an estimate. The symptom most frequently associated with sickle cell disease is pain. Everyone will attest to that. But as I mentioned earlier, research is beginning to indicate that fatigue is an increasingly important symptom of sickle cell disease. Next slide. So I think it's important here to talk about the pathophysiology of sickle cell disease. And so, for the most part, when we talk about the pathophysiology, just in very layman's terms, what's happening is that the red blood cells are breaking down and they're breaking down. And as a result, these cells are no longer round and pliable, but they're sticky and hard and they form rods and they block the ability for oxygen to pass through, etc. So when that happens, there's organ damage. So one of the pathophysiologies of sickle cell disease, such as the profound hemolytic anemia and unpredictable vaso-occlusive crises, indicates that individuals with sickle cell disease may be at risk for both acute and chronic fatigue. So those are the two that affect one's fatigue level. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about this hemolytic anemia. And so you may have heard of it, but here we're going to talk about it. So when you hear of anemia, a lot of people think, or they'll say, I'm anemic. And when I would say a layperson, a person who doesn't have sickle cell disease, says that they are anemic, what they're referring to is that they have low iron. And that isn't the case for a person who has hemolytic anemia. And hemolytic anemia is the abnormal breakdown of red blood cells, either in the blood vessels or elsewhere in the human body. So this most commonly occurs within the spleen, but also can occur in the reticuloendothelial system or mechanically. Hemolytic anemia accounts for 5% of all existing anemias. It has numerous possible consequences ranging from general symptoms to life-threatening systemic effects. So hemolytic anemia is real. Now we're going to talk about vaso-occlusive crises on the next slide. And so that's also known as VOC. Those persons with sickle cell may have heard of vaso-occlusive or VOC. And this is when a person is having it's a very painful complication of sickle cell anemia. It's when the circulation of blood vessels is obstructed. That's what I mentioned earlier about the stickiness and the rod-like and things being blocked. Obstructed by sickle red blood cells causing ischemic injuries. The most common complaint of a VOC or vaso-occlusive crises is pain, and recurrent episodes may cause irreversible organ damage. And so we know that again, wherever blood flows, that there can be organ damage as a result of these recurrent episodes. All right, next slide, please. So today we're going to discuss factors that may contribute to fatigue and sickle cell disease. All right, so okay, so I understand that we also have Pat Corley, and so when we get to, I'll introduce Pat Corley shortly. We're going to continue on with our impact of fatigue. All right. So, according to the National Institute of Health, or NIH, fatigue is recognized as a major symptom of numerous chronic illnesses. So, not just sickle cell disease, and is defined as an overwhelming, debilitating, and sustained sense of exhaustion that decreases one's ability to carry out daily activities, including the ability to work effectively and to function at one's usual level in family or social roles. And I'm sure that many of you guys are nodding your head saying, yep, I can attest to that. So that is that's defined by NIH. Next slide, please. I'm going to continue. So, fatigue in sickle cell disease is critical to address for a number of reasons. So, over the past decade, fatigue has come to the forefront in symptom management across numerous diseases because of its impact on quality of life and what it costs society, really. So, the negative effects on quality of life include interference with cognitive function, social withdrawal. If you don't have enough energy to actually get up and do things and get things done, then you're going to withdraw. Having to modify your daily activities, decrease psychological well-being. We're going to talk about that in terms of depression and anxiety. These things are also affected. So the societal cost of fatigue include increased healthcare costs, reduced work productivity, loss of work, loss of school days, and a high reliance at times on the assistance of caregivers. All right, so keep that in mind. Now we're going to talk about just the literature. And as I mentioned at the very beginning, little has been written about fatigue, so there's a need. I'm going to see if we can bring on either Dr. Bailey and/or Nurse Pat Corley to talk about what's going on in terms of literature. And so, Pat, if you can talk about the literature so far that exists. Okay, so it looks like we have both of our co-moderators having difficulty. So I think I'm going to just keep on keeping on, right? All right, thank you. So let's talk about the literature and in sickle cell disease and fatigue. So with respect to again any kind of research that's occurred, there has been very little or sparse literature, again, looking at fatigue in sickle cell disease. I think everyone knows that it exists. People have stated it, not just in sickle cell disease, but also in terms of just cancer and other chronic illnesses or acute illnesses, but we just need to have more information to figure out, so what do we do about it? We know that it exists, so what do we do about it? But there are 2 studies that actually did look at fatigue. One of them measured vitality, and that one was, they measured vitality with using what's called the medical outcomes short form, and, they defined vitality as having the energy level and fatigue, and they were actually kinda looking at the intersection of the one's energy level and then one's fatigue by how they, scored on that, medical outcome short form. And then there was also the Pisces studies, which is actually pretty well known, and that stands for Pain and Sickle Cell Disease, Epidemiology Study, and that was done in the United States here. And that one compared, national norms, men and women, against men and women with sickle cell disease, and, significantly reported lower levels of vitality. Okay, so one would expect that. Okay, next slide, please. All right. So I'm going to continue and talk about just some of the biological and behavioral factors of sickle cell disease. So these factors can potentially lead to fatigue, um, hypoxemia that we've talked about, inflammation, pain. I think everyone will agree to that, stress, depression, and anxiety. Some of the other some of the other ones that affect fatigue are other factors such as age, gender, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, treatments, and disease severity. So, again, talking about hypoxemia and inflammation. With respect to hypoxemia, what's going on here? And I actually do have I'll show the a slide a little bit later with respect to how that all works. I'll forward that to our team in a second. But hypoxemia, so some of the precursors to hypoxemia include low hemoglobin levels. I think everyone knows what that is when your hemoglobin is low. So that's one of the precursors. It also has to do with the hyperviscosity of your blood, has to do with decreased oxygen, right? But the dilemma is that sometimes um, for people who tend to be hypoxic, it actually doesn't matter sometimes whether it's high or low hemoglobin level. Both can cause hypoxemia. So it's kind of strange. One would think that, of course, if you had low hemoglobin for sure, and you had decreased oxygen, but they've also found that even if you have high hemoglobin level or higher than normal, that you can also experience this. And then it's times of inflammation. So both of these are very much intricately linked together. So many have actually shown that sickle cell disease has been considered an inflammatory disease. And so this is where they find that this link between inflammation and being hypoxic is linked. Next slide, please. All righty. Now we're going to talk about some of the other associated symptoms. Pain that I think everyone can relate to, stress, depression, and anxiety. So, as pain increases the intensity of one's pain, your vitality decreases. If your vitality decreases, more than likely, you're going to experience fatigue. children and adolescents with sickle cell disease in one of the studies have reported disruptions in sleep and poor sleep during painful crises. And I will have to attest that I don't think it's just children and adolescents. I think that adults would also say and shake their head that as well, that they have an interference with their sleep as well. And in terms of stress, we're taking a look at that. We know that stress can be associated with having exacerbating your chronic illness, and that is very prevalent in sickle cell disease. We do know that. So we know that in one biobehavioral model, one proposed pathway is that stress stimulates your neuroendocrine system. It releases cortisol, which in turn stimulates the immune system. It activates and results in negative effects on health outcomes such as fatigue. So, stress in itself, in terms of fight or flight, and you're upset, you're not managing well, that can actually get things moving, and it can increase your pain, which can then, of course, lower your vitality and increase your fatigue. Depression and anxiety as well. Those are very um, they are very common in terms of with chronic illnesses, and they're strongly linked to fatigue as well. So what we find is that in sickle cell disease, depression tends to occur at higher rates than it does in just the compared with African Americans in general. So, for instance, people with sickle cell disease and depression, it occurs about 18 to 27%. And with just African Americans in general, it's about 7 to 8%. And then another study, 80% of those individuals with sickle cell disease who had depression also had anxiety. 80%. But again, we still need more research to look at the relationship between depression and fatigue. All right, so that is just some, go to the next slide, please. There we go. And so I believe this might be the last slide before we get into our panel who's waiting to join us. So some of the other personal and disease-related factors are things such as age, one's gender, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, treatments, the severity of one's disease, the time with their disease, the medications that one takes, the long-term complications, and of course, overall, the cumulative organ damage. So again, little is known about the exact relationship between fatigue and all of these factors in sickle cell disease, and we're needing more research. All right, so that's just the background that I wanted to lay. And now, why don't we bring in our panelists at this time? All right, I'm so happy to see everyone. And so what I'm going to share with our community is this. We're going to have, when I call their name, we're going to have the panelists introduce themselves. And then they will give us one thing about yourselves that you would like for us to know, your age, the type of sickle cell disease that you have, and then your experience with disease, as well as the impact that it's had. So first, why don't we take this time right now to just shout out and say hello to everyone. So, my sister and friend, Sheila, welcome.
Thank you. Hi. Good afternoon, everybody.
Hey, Sheila. And so hey, dear. So we also want to say hello to Jaden. Hey, Jaden.
Hello.
Hey, this is your first time with us, and we're so happy and we welcome you. We also, hey there, we have Pastor Ron Smith. And so,
Um,
Pastor Ron Smith, hey, we're
oh,
so happy that you're here. Thank you. We also have Noah James. And so, Noah, thank you for being with us.
hello, everybody.
Hey, peace.
Hi.
And then, um, Iola, who is a beautiful poet, beautiful human being. And I want to welcome you, Ayula, for being with us today.
Thank you. Hello, everyone.
Hey, all right. So we're going. So, and as you guys can see, we are spanning the lifespan here, because it just doesn't happen. It's not due to just being older, and so seriously, fatigue spans the lifespan. And so when I call your name, and I'll remind you again that give us your name, share something about yourself, maybe something that I don't even know, your age, if you like, type of sickle cell, your experience with fatigue, and the impact that it's had. Because I pretty much laid out everything, and I'm sure all of you were going like this in the background. And so, but we want to hear some personal stories because we do have physicians here who I think they just need to understand literally the impact and those researchers out there, because we need more research in terms of these different factors. So I think I'm going to start. I'm going to start with Jaden. So Jaden, we're going to start with you.
Hi, my name is Jaden. I'm 15. I like comic books. And the personal experience I've had with fatigue is when I was around the age of either 10 or 13, I fell asleep during a standardized test, and the instructor or the proctor was wondering if I had had a stroke or something like that, but it was just overwhelming fatigue. And so I had to miss out on that standardized test.
Wow. Okay. And Jaden, what type of sickle cell do you have?
I have SS.
SS.
Yes.
Okay. And so, because that actually happened, what was the impact? What actually happened um, as a result of that? What was the impact?
There wasn't really an impact that I could see
Mhm.
yet. So, other than missing out on the experience of taking a standardized test.
Mhm.
So, other than that, I can't really think of an impact that it would have.
Thank you. So, we're going to come back to you because you were able to pinpoint a particular experience. So, stay tuned. We're going to come back. And next, I'm going to actually go to Sheila.
Okay. Good afternoon again. Hi. My name is Sheila Marchbanks, and I am a grateful 65 and a half-year old warrior, and I live with sickle beta thalassemia. Something that you all may not know about me, and I'm not sure if Dr. Raleigh knows yet, but I'm wearing a shirt that shows that I'm a Geechee girl. So that in and of itself has been a great journey for me to learn about my heritage. As we learn about sickle cell, it's enlightening and empowering for us to know who we are and where we come from. As far as fatigue, I truly deal with that quite a bit. And as I've aged, now that I am Medicare qualified, I've noticed that I have huge challenges when it comes to sleep. And as a result of not getting good quality sleep, broken sleep, disrupted sleep, sleep interruptions due both to chronic and acute pain, I have found that my quality of life can be impacted. It's not all the time, but I can say that approximately 50% of my life is impacted by fatigue and exhaustion and having difficulties to move forward in the day. And where I've really, 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 really been impacted is that I'm the type of person that likes to get a lot done. I like to be active. I love to travel. I love to serve. And when the results of fatigue and tiredness and not getting good quality sleep, when it impacts my life, I'll wake up and I'll be like, I want to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have a huge to-do list constantly. And when I'm fatigued, I find that I just don't have the energy to go forward. And not being able to kind of tick off those items on my to-do list sometimes can cause me, I wouldn't call it depression, but it causes me to feel like I'm under accomplishing in my life. And when I'm not able, I may not go to sleep. I'm just so tired that I can't get anything done. It's like difficult for me to even lift my hands, my arms sometimes. So I have found that trying to find solutions to my fatigue and to find ways that I can incorporate better sleep hygiene has helped me. And so, Dr. Raleigh, I don't know if you want us to talk about solutions right now or just impact.
I think at the moment, I want to talk about impacts, the impact, and we are going to just look at what you all may or may not be doing in terms of how you're trying to resolve that. So, Sheila, thank you. And so I know you're a proud Geechee woman. And so, so happy to hear that. Thank you so much. We're also being joined to help co-moderate Elle Cole. So, Elle, thank you for being on with us. The next person I'm going to select right now is I want to select, let's select Ayula. And so, again, just to remind everyone, if you can make sure that you give us your name, something about you that perhaps I don't even know, your age, if you like, type of sickle cell, your experience with fatigue, and the impact. Thank you, Ayula.
Hello, my name is Ayola Olubukola Oglunika, and I have SC type of sickle cell. I am 23 years old, and as Dr. Rowley previously mentioned, I am a poet, but I'm also an artist that creates through the lens of catharsis and sickle cell advocacy. So, fatigue has greatly impacted my life, especially on a daily basis, but especially when it comes to my studies, my higher education. Sometimes I'll be unable to move due to how exhausted I am. And a lot of times I won't know what to do, but just let myself rest. And that's something that I've had to teach myself these past few years of accepting when rest is necessary, but also accepting that I'm allowed to rest. Um, I think I don't necessarily have a specific moment of fatigue right now, but more so having to do with my day to day life. Thank you.
No, thank you. And again, as I had mentioned when I laid out the foundation, you're talking about just school and having to navigate that, whether it's being on campus or doing the great amount of reading that's required and the schoolwork. So, yeah, thank you for sharing. I want to move to Pastor Ron. So, Pastor Ron, if you can introduce yourself with your name and
Sure, sure. I'm
something
Pastor
that may
Ron
not.
Smith, and I'm 67 years old. And my problem with fatigue, I'll say I don't have a problem, but sometimes I don't know that I get fatigue, but I find myself burning out, and then I know it's fatigue. And so I try to just kind of calm myself down, relax, and try to allow it to release itself. Um, and sometimes it does, and if not, sometimes I'll I'll just get a chance to go to the park or the beach and just kind of just watch everything that's going on, the birds and a lot of different things. It just kind of distract my mind off of my situations or what I'm going through. And it kind of gives me a sense of release and a sense of peace within inside. Um, so I deal with, sometimes stress bring it on. And when you get stressed out, you really, from fatigueness or what have you, you don't want to get in bottled down and get really depressed. So, a lot of times what we do is I try to find something else that really excites me or make me happy and kind of like I said, like get in a different environment like the beach or the park or something to help uh open up a brighter perspective so where I can see things in a different manner, and it kind of helps me a whole lot in that area. um but I do know that it's a challenging situation. And when we do have fatigueness, like the young lady said earlier, you don't even know whether you're sleepy or whether it's fatigue. But when you find yourself in that mode, from it, sometimes I even just, kind of fall asleep. And it helps relieve the fatigueness also. So, there's different ways that we all deal with it. Um, these are just some of the ways that I've dealt with it. Is it being able to, like I said, get out of the environment, change my environment, and change the things that are around me so that I can see life in a different perspective. And when I see life going on and it's blooming and blossoming in different areas of people's life and the quality of life they live, uh, it has truly affected my quality of life as being a pastor and a minister. And so I've learned to uh, kind of lean on my spirituality to relieve a lot of things. And it has helped me in a great, great, great way. And I know without God, I couldn't do it. So um, that's my way of really kind of handling and dealing with life issues and fatigue and stress.
Thank you. Thank you. Um, thank you. I appreciate you sharing that. And I did want to ask you, so was there something that you wanted to share with the audience in terms of something about yourself that you wanted to share, in addition to being a pastor and a minister?
Oh yeah. Well, let's share.
What's one thing that I don't know about you, Pastor Ron? What's one thing?
One thing.
Where you going today? Where you going today? What you like?
Well, where I'm going today.
Oh, where are you going today?
I'm going to see the monster trucks today.
Oh my goodness. Okay, you into Monster Truck Rally. All right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well,
Well,
that's one thing I enjoy. I enjoy
okay.
them and the
Okay.
motocross. And like I said, that kind of stuff helps relieve, tension and stress, and it allows you to relax.
Of
Yeah.
course, you're doing something that you enjoy. And I did not know that about you. Okay. Wonderful. All
Yeah.
right. And so up next is Noah. Noah, can you introduce yourself? Um, your name, something that I don't know about you, your age, type of sickle cell, and again, same question for everyone, your experience with fatigue and the impact that it's had. Noah?
Hello, everyone. I'm so glad to be here. Um, my name is Noah James. I'm 32 years old. I have sickle cell beta thalassemia. with bone infarction. And one thing you don't know about me is I have my own personal task to learn sign language this year. Growing up with sickle cell, we discovered when I was 6 years old that I was deaf and hard of hearing in both of my ears, but significantly mostly in my right ear. And what that has done over time was added a layer of exhaustion and fatigue in trying to socialize and just network and grow up with people, interact with people. I think that has been one component where fatigue has weighed on me quite a big deal. I relate to everyone else's stories and just impacts that fatigue has had with their lives, but I wanted to just talk about just socially how exhausting it can be to listen and to connect with people emotionally, to be in a hospital setting and having to speak for yourself when it comes to advocacy and getting your needs met with the nurses and the doctors, being interrupted at nighttime when you're trying to get rest and things of that of those nature. So yeah, I just touched that a little bit. Hearing and just socializing in general has been hard and heavy, especially when you don't feel good to connect with others.
Thank you, Noah. All right, so we have a comic book aficionado, a Geechee woman, a poet/artist, a person that loves monster truck rally, and learning sign language. I wanted to learn that too. I'm going to turn this over now to my co-moderator, Elle Cole, who'll continue the conversation. Elle?
Hello, everybody. It is an honor to be able to talk to you all today. I was listening, and there were three things that really stood out to me about everything that you mentioned. One was fatigue for many of you is exhaustion. The next is stress can exacerbate fatigue for you. And the third thing was that distractions can be helpful. So out of all the things that you mentioned, those three seem to be some of the common threads. Can you all, and we're going to start with Noah, can you all share with us what you do to manage fatigue?
Thank you, Elle. What I do to manage fatigue is I do a lot of what Dr. Riley tells us when she meets with us, which is to breathe, to calm, right? We can only control our responses to how things are happening and how, if you're too rattled or too emotionally upset or even stressed out, those things can kind of throw you off. So the first thing I do is to center myself. I meditate, I breathe, I try to listen to some meditation music and some calming and soothing sounds that YouTube sometimes offer for free to just help myself calm down as much as I can and to breathe through the pain and through the exhaustion. So I'll say that for the first thing that I do.
And I wanted to interject. Thank you, Elle, for that question. I wanted to interject and I'm glad that you actually are listening to me, Noah, about mindful breathing and the meditation. I like what Pastor Ron said about going to the beach. So you all are using words like calm, and in my intro and laying out the foundation, you heard me say regarding stress that increase in cortisol can get things going, and you're literally are off kilter, and there's no homeostasis in your body. And so, even with your fatigue, there's an opportunity for you to breathe, get yourself centered, And I would actually ask that people do that more frequently than not, because the last thing we want people to do is to fall out, pass out by not paying attention to the cues that are actually taking place. So thank you, Noah, for that. Elle?
Hi, everyone. So we're going to go in reverse order. So we started with Noah. Pastor Ron, you're next. Share with us what you're doing to manage your fatigue.
Well, actually, how I manage it when I do feel fatigue and a little, overexhausted or tired, I find myself, if I can't go to the beach, I go outside when there's a nice, pretty day and the sunshine is shining really nice and it's not too hot. And I just like to sit in the sun and allow the sun rays to just warm my skin or warm me up. And as I look around me, I see the little birds and they fly from tree to tree. And, it kind of takes my mind to look at nature and to look at the things around me and make me appreciate life more better than I used to look at things, and learn not to take so many things for granted. So I become more appreciative and more giving as I got older, as I'm older. But now I know that it's mostly all about giving and learning how to help and power others with information that you have that will help you and the things that help you got through. And so being 67 years old, that's something that I enjoy. I'll go outside and I'll read, and like I said, I'll sit under a tree or sit in the sun and just let the sun kind of warm my skin, and that kind of thing helps releases my fatigueness. And when I focus on nature, it really gives me a sense of peace of mind to really appreciate life and the quality of life and how it acts around us, and not just focusing personally on myself. So those things really help. And when I have the opportunity to just share with other people or encourage other people, helps me relieve some of my fatigueness and also the difficulties that I go through. I'm also on dialysis, so it's one thing that a lot of people don't know also, but it's a challenging situation. A couple of weeks back, I got really stressed out because I'm facing a situation that I have to deal with for the rest of my life, not only just sickle cell, having SS disease, but now I have another issue. And so, I was really stressed out. Even Dr. Carroll and Pat Carley, they came over and I kind of counseled with me and talked with me because my wife didn't know what to do, and it's okay.
Thanks so much for your transparency. We appreciate it. And
Very
it
much.
really helps us understand what sickle cell is, just not the beginning of it, but as it progresses. So we appreciate you sharing your story because it's something that we all are mindful of. So thank you so much, Pastor Ron. One of the things that I really love that you mentioned was about nature and going out in the fresh air. It has a cleansingness to it where it just kind of rejuvenates us. Even if we're not walking or moving, just being in the atmosphere and the presence of nature, sometimes just listening to the birds sing can have that effect and give us that kind of relaxation from within outward. So I'm so glad that you shared that with us because it's good for all of us to take into account. My next question, it is about how you're managing it, and it's for Ayula. If you could share what you're doing to manage fatigue, that would be awesome.
Thank you for that question, Elle. I actually wrote down some notes and I was hearing Pastor Ron. I was thinking of other things that I have used to manage fatigue. Um, Mainly what I said previously about actually allowing myself to rest. I think one of the major uncomfortable feelings with fatigue is having it and trying to push through the fact that you don't have the capacity at the moment to get things done the way you would like, or having the energy to complete tasks the way you usually do. And that is also a struggle for me. So I kind of push my energy into my artwork. If I'm feeling heavily fatigued and it's affecting my mental health, I will write a poem, or I will decide to paint or sketch or create a video poem or something along the lines of um, creativity. So even though I'm not necessarily moving too much, it is still conducive to movement and also taking my time with whatever I'm creating. Other things that I do, I try to make sure I know all my baselines for my lab reports. So whatever vitamins I'm lacking, I try to supplement them. And even if I'm not lacking them, I try to still supplement the vitamins that we mainly need as sickle cell warriors. Um, the vitamin D's, vitamin B's, all of those and such, folic acid every day as usual. And also something that I've learned greatly from these different seminars, but also my father, is the importance of nutrition. My father has this ideology, and that's kept him alive for 60 plus years. He also has sickle cell. If you're not eating right, you're going to be sick. So something that I grew up with and still manage on my own now is trying to incorporate different things into my diet to help me have more energy, but also to stabilize what is going on while I'm exhausted or feeling down or extra stressed. And for me, I can deal with a lot of not having appetite. So even if I do create a meal, a smoothie, eat some fruit, spinach, mushrooms, all of those things, I'll take my time with them. So even if it'll take me longer to finish a meal, I will still try. And that's the greatest thing to do, to at least try to give yourself that self-care.
You mentioned that word that we've been using a lot today, and just over time, self-care has kind of been the buzzword in our area and amongst ourselves. And I think, you talked about eating even when you don't have the energy to do that. And I think that's really huge, because our food can give us life. It can really help us kind of fill in those nutrients that are missing to give us an extra spark and help us go a step further. So I'm so glad that you mentioned it. I'm a caregiver, and I know for me, dealing with my daughter, trying to make sure she takes her vitamins when she's supposed to, just hearing you say that, I'm so glad that you mentioned it, because that can definitely give someone else the encouragement, that, oh, there are things that I can do to give myself a little bit of a boost. So I'm so glad that you shared the different things that work for you. You also talked about an outlet, which is huge and important. So thanks so much for sharing. Next, we have Sheila. If you could share what you're doing to manage fatigue, that would be great.
Whatever. I didn't unmute myself. Do I do something?
You're good. You're good now.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I listening to everyone, it's like I got some new input as well as some things that I am doing. And what I would like to add to what's been offered is that I have found that in managing my fatigue, I find that it's two-sided. One, I can do preemptive behaviors that help me manage my fatigue. And then the second one is that I both basically do post fatigue issues. And I'll explain that. Preemptively, I have found that if I practice good sleep hygiene, I increase the possibilities that I'll get a good quality of sleep and help reduce my fatigue. And that means that I have to turn off TVs, screen time, lights. I have to establish like really good sleep habits, trying to go to bed at the same time, waking up at the same time. And once I get myself into that pattern, it seems to help regulate my circadian rhythms in my body, and it helps me with with fatigue. So if I get a really good sleep, oh my gosh, I feel like $1 million the next day. And a lot of times I can see that my fatigue is reduced or eliminated when I exercise good sleep hygiene. Another way that I manage my fatigue is if I'm caught up in a cycle of not getting good sleep. I find that when I lay down, if I put on an audiobook, make the room dark, I put on an audiobook or my audio Bible and I listen. And so while I'm struggling to get sleep so that I cannot have fatigue in the next day, while I'm listening to something else, it takes my mind off because it becomes a vicious cycle. I'll be up at 2 o'clock in the morning and be like, oh my gosh, I can't go to sleep. My brain won't shut down. I'm going to be dealing with extreme fatigue tomorrow. So listening to something calming, there was a gentleman that mentioned the calm things on YouTube. There's so many things that we can access for free that can help us manage the fatigue. Another thing, I wrote some notes here, so let me look at this real good. Another aspect of fighting my fatigue is that I will wear a Fitbit. And if you're part of some medical groups, they give these free. You can get a Fitbit, and I find getting the feedback. So if I get a good night's sleep, I kind of feel rewarded. Or if I don't get a good night's sleep, I can evaluate what happened to me. What was I doing that may have precluded me getting a good night's sleep? Sometimes it's pain insomnia that causes me not to have a good sleep. I can't do a whole lot about that, but if I identify it and if I look at my Fitbit, it'll give me feedback saying you got a poor quality sleep, good quality sleep, Sheila, or excellent. And so I will think about what did I do good for my body that I got the outcome that I wanted. And I will say, last but not least, is eating a healthy diet. I have found that if I eat nutritionally, the more fruits and vegetables that I consume in my body and not eating a super heavy meal very late at night, that helps me with my fatigue. And in managing it, when I do wake up and I'm super, super tired and I feel very lethargic, and I know that I'm not going to get done what I had planned to do that day, I, like Pastor Ron say, I have found that literally just sitting in the sun, because as a sickle cell warrior, I am cold all the time. At 100 degrees, my hands could be ice cold. But when I sit in the sun and I just listen to the birds and I let the sun penetrate my skin, sometimes that in and of itself will just give me an energy that is so soothing. And so I would say those are things. And last but not least, I am a coffee drinker. So eliminating caffeine in the afternoon is another tip.
Thank you so much. You gave us so many tools that we can put in our toolbox to use, the healthy vegetables, just everything you named, and the sun. You know, when we think of vitamin D, that's the sunshine vitamin. So our bodies, even though we have melanin, our bodies need more sun. And so I love that you shared all of those things. Jaden, please share what is helpful for you to manage fatigue.
So I don't really manage fatigue. I just live with it basically. Instead of listening to what my body has to say, most of the time I just push through fatigue. And I know it's a bad thing, but most of the time I have deadlines that are the next day or in a few hours, so I can't really do that. But when I do have the time to take a break, I most of the time do that. And when it comes to other things, when it comes to like stress, emotional fatigue, and mental fatigue, I just take a break and do something that I really enjoy. And when I'm not, so when I feel emotions most of the time, I like to either sing or do something like that about it. So I would listen to a lot of music and sing out loud. So that way, it's like instead of journaling, I do this. But yes, that's mainly what I do for fatigue.
Thank you so much, Jaden. It is great to hear all the different ways everyone is managing fatigue. All of them are a little bit different, but there is something that we all can take because it's just healthy living in general. So, all of us who are on this presentation, we all can utilize every single one of the tools that you all mentioned. Right now, we're going to take a few questions from the audience. And our first question is, can you have or experience both anemia and hemolytic anemia at the same or different times?
And the answer is yes. It is possible for one to experience both, and it is possible. It's unfortunate, but it is possible. I wanted to, before we go into our next question, I wanted to go back, Elle, to Jaden, who likes to sing. So everybody knows that I like music. So, and here we have the Sound of Music sing along. So, Jaden, I'm just going to put it out there. I don't know if you like musicals, but I think singing as well is very uplifting and it's fun. And so I'm so happy that you actually mentioned that. Thank you. All right, Elle, the next question.
So, our next is not a question, it is a comment, and it says, it's for Pastor Ron, and it says, it sounds like Pastor Ron is saying that taking time to be still is a way of relieving stress.
And so, yes, again, the quick answer to that is yes. So it's so funny. There's two schools of thought that's going on here, and I think that's kind of maybe based upon age as one of those factors that we talked about. So, Pastor Ron and others have talked about nature and being still, um, to just kind of be quiet, to manage when they feel like they're fatigued. And whereas for Jaden, um, who's currently in school, has to push through in order to be able to keep up with his studies. That isn't to say that the others don't push through, perhaps for deadlines, but continuing to do that over the long haul, I think will have consequences. Um, and so I think it's being mindful of knowing when and when not to do it. So, Jaden, you actually said that's a bad thing. So, I don't want you to frame it that way. That it's not that it's bad. It's something that you chose to do because you have um, the benefit of being able to push through is so that you can finish your class or take the test or what have you. So, I don't want you to frame it as bad or anyone else to frame things as that is bad. Just look at just kind of weigh the pros and cons. And so, if pushing through means that one may wind up having a vaso-occlusive crises, then we have to think about that the next time around. And you can also look at, so if I do this, am I going to afford myself the opportunity to be able to rest and take it easy once I've accomplished that? So there are those who just push through and barrel through all the time, and there are those who make choices as to when to push through, when to not push through, depending upon what's going on. Elle, what do you think about that? Because I was hearing, but I'm very conscious about the words that we select.
I think you're absolutely right. I think, our perspective and how we frame it mentally can definitely affect us too. And, my takeaway is you have to learn yourself. I think what everyone said, it talked about them spending time with themselves and evaluating, not necessarily consciously, but learning what works for them and what doesn't, because every person living with sickle cell is different. And so, you have to over time see what your body finds acceptable and what it doesn't. So you know when you're at your limit and when you need to step back. And I think that was the one of the important takeaways that I received from it.
Yes, thank you. I think there's another comment or question.
There was another comment, and it says, when all experience fatigue, do you welcome help from your caregivers or prefer to draw away?
Wow, that's a good question. Can we bring everyone back and each one can answer? I'm thinking about that for myself too. What do I tend to do? But if we can bring everyone back in and each of you answer that. All right, let's start. I don't see Pastor Ron, but why don't we start with who appears at the top on my screen is Jaden.
Most of the time, I do accept help from caregivers, but I push everyone else away, which is something that I'm trying to work on, especially since I'm a more social person. Sometimes when I'm fatigued, I just talk to other people and it recharges me basically. So I'm trying to work on that, but I do accept help from my caregivers, my family, and my friends sometimes. But I'm trying to work on that to where I can still function socially, but still be tired and things like that.
Sheila?
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Jaden. Sheila?
Could you repeat the question? Sorry.
When you all experienced fatigue, do you welcome help from your caregivers or prefer to draw away?
I think I do a little both. Sometimes I'm not recognizing that I'm having fatigue, and I'm kind of like a little bit irritated and trying to push through and get it done anyway. And my brain's a little muffled, and I'm not even recognizing it. And then once I recognize it, I'll sit down, and my caregiver primarily is my husband. And then I'll ask Tony, I'll say, Tony, I'm really tired and I just can't move forward. Can you help me? But usually it isn't immediate. It's a journey before I get there. And if I'm around my girlfriends, many of them have gotten to really know me. And I'm a firstborn daughter, so I've always really not asked for help. I'm always the helper. And I have found, since we have these different ages in the group, I have found now that I am older that I ask for more help at this stage of my life than I ever did when I was younger.
Thank you. Noah?
I agree. It's a little bit of both. My mom, I've been blessed to put more support in her pockets. I've hired her as my caretaker, thanks to the laws that we have now. And so my mom, she used to tell me a story how when I was not feeling well, I would tend to become shorter with my words, and the words and the expression used to communicate with doctors, especially when I'm in pain, would cause her to feel nervous, because it's not the normal tone that she would expect for me to speak from. So um, now, as my caretaker, she welcomes it, and she gives me a space to uh, lift the load, if you will. You know, sometimes we can contribute more to our fatigue by sitting in emotional pit holes and stressed pit holes, and you know, just other things that hold us back. So it's an equal thing, equal parts of both pushing away those that could wait a while, and then also welcoming those who can comfort you when you need it.
That's a lot of wisdom you just shared. So thank you, Pastor Ron.
Well, I kind of agree with both of them, because that's a way of, you know, my caregiver, I can release some of the things that I need to release to them or to her. And there's some things that, you know, I hold within, and I deal with them myself, and you know, just kind of, you know, deal with it through my spirituality, and, you know, and that way release it. But yeah, it's a little bit of both, but I agree with both of them. And sometimes when you're in the hospital, and you do need an applicator, like my wife, you know, she'll speak for me. Like you said, Noah, when you're in pain, it's kind of hard to explain the situation, and then they'll come and ask you, well, what's the number of your pain, you know, and you kind of like, you know, if you're really hurting, you know, you can't really get it out if you want to. Well, it's a 6 or 7 or 10, whatever it is. But it helps to have someone there also when you have to be hospitalized, you know, because it's a difficult task. And like you said, you don't get no rest in the hospital. As soon as you get to sleep and try to, you know, get rid of the pain, or get relaxed from the pain when they give you medication, then there's someone coming to wake you up in 4 hours, you know. So that's a difficult task. So um, but I agree with both of you. It's a little bit of both. Some people you can release to, and some things you have to, you know, kind of manage, and through your spirituality, and let God deal with it.
So much truth in what you're sharing with us. Absolutely. I'm just grateful that you all are so transparent. Ayula, can you share, please?
Yes, of course. Something that I've definitely done as I've matured through my years is actually focus on self-respect. And part of the self-respect has to do with acknowledging who has the capacity to be in your support system, and who has the capacity to even hear what you're going through. And a lot of times having sickle cell, that can be hard, because initially somebody might be sympathetic towards you rather than empathetic, or somebody might be able to hear what's going on but not actually provide you like physical support that you need. So I have like my moments where I can push people away, but those are the initial moments that I try to fight through, and remember that the specific people in my life are a primary support system, and I do want advocacy in my life. Like as a sickle cell advocate, I believe other people that don't even have sickle cell should advocate for people that have sickle cell. So it's something that I'm very forward and very I explain exactly what I need when I'm in pain, I'm in the hospital, what's going on. I do that in detail, even if I might not be able to answer my phone immediately because of hospitalization or something, but I'm still very vulnerable and transparent in the way that I think I deserve care. So.
Wow. So many great tips. And one of the things that you mentioned is you're looking at the capacity of the people who you're asking to support you. And for me, that just made me to pause and think, because I think sometimes some of us sometimes just because we know what we can handle, we don't always have that empathy to look at the capacity of others. So you talked about self-respect, but you also talked about respecting others and putting those personal boundaries into place to kind of know what you can share, what you can't. And I think that's huge. It's so important. And it's just a level of thoughtfulness that I think is wonderful, that you're able to be so thoughtful of others that you're like, well, I know this person can't handle it, but I know this person can. And so I think that's very thoughtful, and so I appreciate you sharing.
And I wanted to add one thing as well before our next question is I've used this term often, being able to give ourselves grace. And so I don't think I can say it too often because everyone, you're given the gift of life today. So how is it that we're going to use it? And as Sheila mentioned, she has this laundry list, and there are times she can get through and times she can maybe only do one. And I think that's when we need to give ourselves grace for, and I say this as well, give ourselves grace for doing what it is that we can do, but also just know that what we did today is what we were supposed to do today. So just because you have a laundry list of 7 to 10 things doesn't mean that that's what you were supposed to do. And so to give yourself grace of doing that which you've done today. So I wanted to share that. I think we have some other questions and comments, Elle.
Yes. So this question is, what suggestions would you provide to the younger or older generation? In other words, if you are younger, what would you tell an older warrior to do differently, and vice versa, being older to a younger warrior? So Noah, we'll start with you.
One thing that I despised growing up was hearing limitations from my care team at the time, and those limitations frustrated me because it only made me want to do the thing that they're telling me not to do more. So I would say, do not listen to all of the limitations. Try, um, and do your own research. Because as you grow, those limitations may not be limitations as your body changes. They may be a wealth of opportunity there, right? So I want to get that out because that bugged me growing up.
So I'm going to choose someone. Sheila, I'm going to choose you.
Okay. If in speaking to someone who's younger and what suggestions I would give them, I would tell them to carpe diem, seize every single day as they're living and learning about living with sickle cell disease, that whatever they can do in that day to really rejoice in that, to find a way to be grateful each and every day. Because now that I'm older, I know that there were times that I may have not really appreciated each and every day and celebrated each and every day, even if I was hospitalized or dealing with some challenges, to try to find a way to, even if possible, look forward to the future. So if you're sitting in a hospital and you're not feeling well and maybe things aren't going very well, to realize that there is a tomorrow that looks brighter and more beautiful and holds all the hope and will allow you to express all of your potential. So that's what I would like to tell young people, that it really is a wonderful life and that sickle cell is not all bad. I have received so many gifts living with sickle cell. And one of the first and foremost is that I share many times that every single day I look at it as a gift. It's like the God, the Lord, Jesus Christ, gives me a box and it has a bow. And I eagerly open it up and look at, oh my God, what do I get a chance to do today? Who do I get a chance to talk to and meet? As for instance, being here today. That's what I would tell the young person, that life is a gift and no one is promised tomorrow. And you do not have to believe the toe tag that they put on most of us here, because my mom was told I wouldn't live much past my 20s. But here I am, 65 and a half, and rejoicing each and every single day. So, young people, come on, carpe diem, enjoy each and every day.
Wow, I'm just so moved and so touched. And I know every single one of us listening is as well. Yes. Jaden, we're gonna come to you next. Is there something you would tell somebody who's older?
Not really. Maybe that since sickle cell can be sort of like a battlefield sometimes. A quote comes to mind from a book that I read. It was, "If you know your enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 1,000 battles." And so, if you learn yourself and learn how sickle cell affects you specifically, then you don't have to worry about those unknown things that could pop up. You have to be able to adapt, but as well as predict what might happen.
And Jaden, I'm going to have you, I like for people to repeat things more than once. Please repeat again that quote from that book.
If you know yourself and know your enemy, you need not fear the result of 1,000 battles.
Thank you.
Good.
It was
Ron.
from The Art of War by Sun Tzu.
Okay.
Okay.
Wow.
Thank you, wise one.
Exactly. I saw Pastor Ron smiling and his hand went up when Jaden was speaking. So did you want to speak to that, Pastor Ron?
Well, I would share. I would share to the younger generation that education is power, and once you empower yourself with that education, to know better. I was told at age 18 that I would not live anymore.
Right.
And so, I grew up thinking that there's a death sentence on sickle cell at age 18. And like all the other things that Noah said about, those things that people say, here I am, 67 years old, 3 times is plus 18. But just to let you know how, if you just, like Jaden said, when he read the quoted that from the book, that's powerful. I just want to say that's powerful because if
Yes.
you know the battle, if you know your enemy and you know the battle that you're going in, don't worry about the outcome because you already know that you should have the victory, going through it. It might get rough, it might get tough, but at the end of result, we have setbacks, but we also know we got to have a comeback because a setback cannot keep us down. The word of God says a man falls 7 times, but he get back up again.
Amen.
So we have those challenges in life that we have to deal with. But I've learned that never believe what somebody else says. I've been the kind of person I have to see it and have it proved to me by myself, whether it's going to burn me or whether it's going to set me free. And so what I mean by that is that once you take the test yourself, you know if you could pass it or not. And if you don't pass it, take the test again until you pass it. And that's what I've always learned. So pour that into the younger generation and let them know, educate yourself, be empowered with information. That way you know what route to take and what's good for yourself. If you do eat right and eat the right things that you're supposed to eat, a lot of vegetables, a lot of nutrients to give yourself that blood building and strengthen your body, your bones and everything, you'll be able to handle some of those things that'll come your way that you didn't expect in life,
Right.
So those kind of things. I would just empower yourself.
Yes, yes. You know, just this part of the conversation, this is why everyone is called sickle cell warriors, because you all are conquerors, and the words and the tips and everything that you're sharing is the epitome of that. So I thank you all just for all of those tips, and the positivity is just bringing me so much joy. Ayula, I know you have some profound words to share. So if you could share now, that would be great.
So my main tip for the older generation is tell your stories. I think that something about sickle cell is the immense trauma that we store in our bodies throughout our ages. But something that's especially lacking in the sickle cell community is hearing older stories from people 50, 60, 70, etc. Like hearing from so many people, even like my father's experience with sickle cell, feeling like you would die before you were even 18. And now coming from a generation where there wasn't like there wasn't bone marrow transplants, there wasn't immunotherapy drugs, there wasn't even Dilaudid. And now you have such a capacity to give back to us and letting us know, how can we serve you better? How can we listen to you better? What can we learn from you? But also, what is your story? And part of my artistry is telling the stories of people living with sickle cell, but especially humanizing their stories. You're not just sickle cell. What were you doing when you were 5? What shows did you love? What family members did you connect with? What books did you grow up with? What songs do you love to sing outside of your pain? And I think that's so important to focus on, like the person's experience and life story outside of their learned pain and whatever suffering that we have experienced. But to the older generation, basically tell us more about yourselves.
I just want to reiterate that, because people will always remember your story. They may not remember your name, they may not remember your face, but your stories evoke emotion and feeling within. And so when you share those stories with other people, it helps them connect, relate, and remember. So I'm so glad that you brought that up, because I think it's powerful. We have another question, and that is, what do you think contributes to healthy aging and thriving beyond the limitations placed on us? And I'm going to let that be open so that anyone can jump in and comment on it.
I think I'm going to start. I think I'll start this one. And you've all said it, but I'm going to start it by saying being plant-based at a very early age, nutrition, loving the sun, and so vitamin D. And thank you. So nutrition, I think that's one of the reasons why I became plant-based, was that I wanted to make sure to have moving forward to do everything as healthy as possible. So I'm going to start that conversation with nutrition, that I think aids in the healthy aging, and not just for people with sickle cell disease, I think in general as well. So I'm going to start there.
Thank you so much for mentioning that. And I know, as a caregiver who has a daughter that's been plant-based since birth, I know that diet has been something that we've kind of taken on as a lifestyle, as a family, as a whole, not just for her because she has sickle cell, but it's good for all of us. Just like all of the tips that you all shared, I put them on my list for me to do with her, but really they're mostly for me, because they're important for every single person. Who wants to share next? Sheila, I saw you first.
Yeah, I'll raise my hand on that. Ooh, I will say having a wonderful social life, having friends, having positive people in your life. I believe it asked about healthy, because sometimes the question has to be repeated for me. Um, healthy,
I'll go ahead and read it.
thank you.
What do you think contributes to healthy aging and thriving beyond the limitations placed on us?
Voila. Yes. Okay. Again, there's a new study out that speaks about social fitness. And when I read it, it hit me like on the nail head. And my thriving and having healthy living or not aging too fast or whatever you want to call it, okay, is really and truly having a wonderful social circle, being engaged and involved with positive people, be it being I'm in a book club, I've taught Sunday school, I love to serve people, and I have found that being around positive people is like embers in a fire. The more logs you have, the brighter the blaze. And for myself, no matter where I go in the world, and you guys can probably see my personality right here, is that I'm happy. I love life. I am so thankful. And I can go into any setting and talk to anyone and relate to anyone. And I think being open to life, being open to people, making the decision to live with joy, to sojourn in joy, really allows one to have a youthful countenance, even as one is a senior individual, and that has allowed me to strive. I didn't realize it. My husband calls me a social butterfly, but that I believe has helped me to stay young inside my feelings, even though, you know, I am aging, thankfully.
I love that imagery that you just gave us with the bright embers. It just really made us see, the fire that sparks. And, this conversation, everybody is smiling, everybody feels uplifted. I just wanted to share that we appreciate you being so open and willing to talk about, aging, because I think that's a part of the sickle cell story we don't always get to hear. Sometimes we just hear about the diagnosis and the early years, but to hear the perspective of aging and seeing you all smile just goes a lot further than just hearing, you can grow older with sickle cell, but, it's everything that comes along with it. You all are full people, you're
Yes.
not just at home, you're socializing with others, and it's just been enriching. So that visual imagery that you shared just took it one step further for me. Who wants to share next? Ayula.
So I think something to focus on is your needs as you age, and that definitely changes from every decade. The things
Mhm.
that I needed as a child, the things I should have prioritized as a child in my adolescence, is not what I'm focusing on now in my early stages of adulthood. And I know by the time I'm 30, 40, etc., there's going to be pivots and shifts in my lifetime. Um, and just being more self-aware about what you need and focusing on who you are can really help you learn more about your health, more about who you are within your community, how to service yourself, how to serve your
Yes.
community. Um, a lot of self-reflection and a lot of gratitude, even, and I think most of us have like talked about that throughout this seminar, but being grateful for hard times, difficult times, being grateful for amazing times, but being grateful also for the lessons that life throws at us. A lot of things are out of our control while having sickle cell, but understanding that nothing is permanent, and I think that that's such the of a that's such a beautiful thing about life, that about the impermanence of situations, the impermanence of your environment, the impermanence of stages in your life, but also recognizing that shifts happen and you're allowed to process throughout your whole life. Take your time, focusing on what actually like makes you passionate and what fills you up with joy. Another thing is staying hydrated.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
You just talked about, what brings you joy. And in the comment section, we have someone who also shared what helps. And that is creating helps me. That's the comment. And I think it speaks directly to what you're talking about, Ayula, where you talked about writing poetry and doing that self-reflection. And I think when people are creative, that's their expression. That is their self-expression. So they're sharing what's in them in a creative way, a fun way, regardless of whatever they're doing to create, because we all know there's tons of ways to create, but whatever it is, it's a part of you and your perspective on life. So thanks so much for bringing that to our attention.
I think
So
Noah had his hand up.
I was sharing it with the group, but I just wanted to tagline: creating helps me because it leaves me an opportunity to leave a part of my legacy and a part of my heart with my community, with those I serve, with those that I love. And that in itself is its own form of therapy. I'm working more on the nutrition portion because so much of my family roots and my Black people is eating um, for pleasure. And it's so important that that holds a little tiny space, but it's vital to eat for livelihood and for fruitfulness. So I wanted to combine all of that with what you all said and to say, create and leave a little portion of yourself with your community is what also helps you all thrive and smile. I'm so glad. I hope I get to remain connected to you all and hear your stories in the future. And thank you, Dr. Riley, and thank you as well for just talking with us.
Of course, dear. Of course. I think there's still a couple of people. Who wants to go next? Jaden or Pastor Ron? And I can we can repeat the question, which is, what do you think contributes to healthy aging and thriving beyond the limitations placed on us? Pastor Ron?
Well, I agree with what you said about eating right and knowing what the things that you're going to eat that's going to help plant-based. Now, I didn't learn plant-based until about 3 years ago when you shared some information with us. And from that moment on, I started paying a lot of attention to what I was eating and how I felt after I ate certain things that I did eat as far as plant-based food and the other stuff that we used to eat. And I found out I felt better, I breathed better, I had more energy, and because I used to juice a lot, and juicing was good, with the kale and the spinach and some garlic, and we used to use some like pineapples and different things that would give you energy, strawberries and stuff. It was good, but I found out what you said. If you stick to mostly vegetables and get rid of the starch, you'll be okay. Eating plant-based food. And it has helped me a whole lot as far as not getting sick so much or eating the wrong things, that causes different inflammation and stuff in your body. So that helped a whole lot. So I agree 100% on that. Some things I didn't like, I had to get used to. Because you get stuck in that old way when your mama and your daddy, they cooked what they had, or we ate what we could. But
Right.
when you learn better, you know better. When you know better, you do better. And so that was the key for me, learning to know better. And so now that I do, me and my wife, I look out for her, she looks out for me, and I say, and that, and she'll tell me the same thing. But, and then not just that, but having also someone in your life that you can share and be compatible with, and those kinds of things also, that helps the quality of life. I like what the young lady said about not being around negative people, but if you're around positive people and positive people all the time and people that are going somewhere, then you find out the better quality of life. My dad used to tell me, if you're hanging around a bunch of friends and you're smarter than they are, you got the wrong friends. You need to find some other friends. And so, which was true, when you hang around smarter people, you become smarter, because they'll make you study when they study. So that's the most positive thing I found out in life. So I'm still learning. I don't know everything. I'm still learning. So it's one day at a time. That's what I do now. I take one day at a time. If I'm feeling good today, I'm going to push it 100%. If I'm not feeling good today, then I'm going to pump my brakes and do about 50 or 25 miles an hour. So that's the way I look at it. So, but I'm enjoying the conversation, and I hope some people are really getting some information and powerful information to help them, because this is very important for all of us at our sickle cell advocates, and to pour out to them that will give them knowledge to retrain themselves and recreate themselves in life. So those are the
Yes.
most important things I've learned. I appreciate all of this.
Thank you so much. There was a comment. You said, are people listening and enjoying it? They definitely are. And the comment says, thank you, everyone, for sharing. And that comment's from Zoom. So listen, everybody, people are just enjoying what you're sharing. They're enjoying seeing the joy on your faces and by listening to your stories. Jaden, did you want to share before we share the next question?
I can't really think of anything to share about this except for what everybody else has already said. So,
Okay, fully noted. So the next question is freedom to have joy and managing my stress by just slowing down, reflection, and not holding on to hurt, disappointment, and the shoulda, coulda, wouldas.
Whoa.
Wow.
That's a powerful statement.
It
I'm
sure
going to
is.
read it one more time. Freedom to have joy and managing my stress by just slowing down, reflection, and not holding on to hurt, disappointment, and the shoulda, coulda, wouldas.
So, Elle, when I read this, I think of, so I like to consolidate things to one word. So, joy, regarding the freedom to have joy and managing stress. So, that would be grace. Reflection and not holding on to hurt, peace, and not holding on to the hurt, the disappointment, and the shoulda, coulda, wouldas is finally having peace. In order to get to peace, one has to have forgiveness of self and forgiveness of others. So there's that grace and peace. Now, that's what I get from that statement, the comment that came from our audience. Thank you.
Thank you. It's very powerful. And I like how you rephrased it from your perspective.
Yes.
And I think sometimes we have to do that because our journey is personal. Just like Pastor Ron said, you got to take every day one day at a time. And so it's a personal journey. And so just how you took that person's perspective and put it in your own lens and shared, how you can remember it and take that with you. I think that's important. And I'm sure, is there something from the conversation that each of you have kind of internalized and maybe, one or two words that you plan to take with you? while you all are thinking, I'm going to share. There was a statement in the comments that says, wow. And Eula, I saw your hand, so you can share.
So I really love the quote Jaden shared with us from The Art of War. I actually have read parts of The Art of War, and it is a very informational and pivotal book. But I do think overall, we just have to take our time and know our not limitations, but back to the word to capacity. Know when to rest, know when to go 1000%, and know when to reach out for help. So all of those things I'm trying to remember as my day goes by.
Thank you. And I want you to, if you could, we're looking at our time, if you can also share at this time something that you would like to leave with our audience.
Something I would like to leave with the audience is just to continue to educate yourself about sickle cell as much as you can. Share the stories of your loved ones. Listen to the stories of people that do have sickle cell, but also learn from the things that we use to manage our health and navigate the medical systems, because it is very informational advice for anyone, even if you don't have a chronic illness, even if you do have a different chronic illness. So
Educate and share. Thank you. Anyone want to go next?
I can. One thing that I'd like to leave with the audience is that it's not over until it's over, basically. And although there's no promise for tomorrow, you can still dream and achieve different things that could help you for tomorrow. And I like to think of sickle cell as a way that God talks to me specifically. So, although I may not be able to read the Bible and then apply it to myself as much as I would like to, the pain and different things that I feel is sort of a way of talking and a way for me to listen, basically. And that this life, that this pain and stuff that we endure is all meant for us to endure, because if we didn't have this, there wouldn't be any issues. I mean, it would be, I'm trying to explain this in a coherent way. We have sickle cell and different things like this, so that way we don't excel past where we need to be, basically. So I think of it as something to even the playing field for other people, something like that. Not saying that I'm better than other people, but to basically to make me more down to earth and to make me more humble, to make me a better person.
Yeah. I see exactly what you're saying. You know, you're mentioning to make you relatable to other people. And I've always saw it as, it makes you passionate. Like when you're connected to the sickle cell community, it's like you want the world to stop and listen and understand. And it's like we have our horns and we're trying to tell everybody. And it's something that has really just stopped us in our tracks and said, hey, this is something that is bigger than me. It's not a personal thing. It's something that connects all of us. And so even though every one of us, we don't know each other personally, but just even being on this call, we're all so connected and we understand each other. And that's clearly apparent. And so I think that's something that passion is more powerful than the pain. That's what I like to tell myself. And that's how I understand what you're sharing. So thank you. Sheila.
Yes. Connecting to both of what you and Jaden said. What would I like the takeaway to be? The takeaway is to avail yourself to the sickle cell community. get involved with support groups, attend conferences, invest yourself, become a member, an active member. I can tell you, I lived my first 45 years as a sickle cell warrior working in the aerospace field, and I lived on the down low. I didn't want anyone to know. I didn't want my career to be limited with sickle cell, so on and so forth. But I was all by myself. And when I joined the sickle cell community, my whole life changed. The quality of my life. I met all of you beautiful people. It's like I got a whole new family. I was connected to educational resources. I was connected to better medical care. I was connected and became sister friends with Carolyn and Pat and Adrian, and they gave me an opportunity to, they have still give me an opportunity to serve and to be here. So I would say one of the greatest things, both warriors as well as supporters, family members, caregivers, and providers, connect yourself with this community. Attend those conferences. Now you don't even have to leave your home. You can be on Zoom like this. What? We can be in our bedroom, in our kitchens, in our pajamas with a jacket on. But we can be comfortable and still connect and build relationships. And also, to, for me, it's an expression of a calling that the Lord has put on my life. I feel humbled and honored to be able to be here, to share, to give, and to receive. So that's what I would say. Get connected.
Thank you.
Yes, yes.
I'm gonna keep mine very sweet because you all have overflowed my cup with so much love and support, and I thank you for that. Yes, one of the things, the key word that Sheila said earlier was gift, and we've been talking a lot about service, and I can attest that. I know when I first came to Cayenne Wellness, I was at the borderline of losing my job at 32, and I didn't have a job. But something said, ground yourself in service with the peers that are connected to you, with the sickle cell community at large. And it wasn't that led me to a job, but it connected me closer to my servitude and my heart and to my passion for philanthropy and just service at large. So now I'm working in the nonprofit sector and being able to pour into other talents and gifts and creative tool sets that I have. So I appreciate you all so much because this is truly a gift. It's a lifesaver. We've lost so much in so many different forms, especially in the sickle cell community at large. And sometimes we can feel like it's too much. And these moments of connection is truly what keeps us going and keeps us thriving. So that's what I'll say, along with my fellow family here.
Yes, yes. You know, just listening to you, it was like watching a cup and things were being poured into it, you know? Just this whole conversation has been filling all of our cups. So, Pastor Ron, I'm sure you're going to share something phenomenal with us.
Well, I don't want to take it to a whole nother level, but but what I do want to share with you is that I have 5 kids. I have 4 girls and 1 son. They're all adults now. But the joy that I get in raising my kids and bringing them up, it was hard. It was really hard. It was a struggle, but we made it. But the joy that I have now, when I look back, I have 4 grandkids. And those grandkids, when we talk about joy, it brings me joy to see them. I have my 2 grandbabies, Kayla and Rhea. Rhea and Zaya. They go out in my front yard and they turn flips and do cartwheels. And that's the most enjoyable thing to me, that I could watch them do that all day long. But I'm just saying, these are the kinds of things, when you reach that level, you all are still kind of young. But when you do reach that level to where you have kids and they have grandkids, do one favor for me, just spoil them rotten. And when you spoil them rotten, my kids are so mad at me because they don't get the chance that I give their kids. But I enjoy them. That's just one thing that I could say that's a part of the joy of my life, other than just giving generally to people from myself and sharing my love to them. So that's one of the things that I just wanted to share. I hope it don't throw us off track.
No,
But
that was beautiful. And I think it was perfect because we talked a lot about aging, and Noah brought up the word legacy. So you really just kind of put all of that into a full circle for us. You shared with us your legacy, that you are able, you're privileged to see your legacy, you know, turning flips and doing flips, and you have that joy when you watch them. And so there is a comment that I think just sums it all up. And it says, there was a time in my life where I tripped and fell because I was spending too much time looking back and little time looking forward. So proud of this panel and what they offer others, using their knowledge, enlightening and empowering others.
Yes. Yes. I think, Elle, this is a wonderful way for us to draw to a close at this time. I do want to say thank you. And for those that this is my first time working with you, I'm indeed very grateful. And as you get to know me, you'll feel that coming from me. I'm very thankful for you spending your Saturday with me and with us. You didn't have to be here. There are so many other things that are always grabbing at us. So thank you all for taking your Saturday, these last couple of hours, to spend with us at Cayenne Wellness Center and the audience that's been listening. I also wanted to say this is being recorded. So for someone that you're like, oh, they just missed something great, it's not too late. They'll be able to actually see the recording. And so what we tend to do is share when the recording has been completed and put up on our site, and then we'll share that it's actually up there. And it'll be called Fatigue and Sickle Cell Disease Part 1. So thank you all. Appreciate it. Elle?
Well, I just feel like this has been a full meeting and just a joyous occasion. Even though we're not in person, I feel like, I'm giving all of you a virtual hug because now we're family. And so when we meet again, we have to give another virtual hug. So it has been truly just a tremendous honor to be with each and every one of you. And I hope you all join us next time for part 2. So thank you for your time and for your willingness to share.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for the opportunity.
And so if the panelists can just hang out for a little bit, we're saying goodbye to our Zoom and streaming friends. So the tech team will let us know when we've actually concluded.